Hey everyone, this is the Love of Cinema podcast. We like to talk movies. If you like to talk movies too, you come to the right place.
First thing I noticed that okay, it's a crime investigative drama, but focus is more on personal relationship. You know, through crime, they are trying to explore the personal equations, personal aspect of human being. That intrigued me. When I read, rather than it's typical investigative and that's why even investigative part also was never shot in typical way, because investigation was a secondary.
Kohrra was probably my favorite show of last year. A crime thriller that's much more than a police procedural. It's a show that deals with many themes that fall outside the ambit of an usual police procedural. Kohrra is about manifestation of violence. It's about guilt. It's about regret. The show also talks about failure to understand one's closest to you. A complex show. Kohrra was directed by Randeep Jha. Incidentally, Randeep also made one of the top films of 2020, Halahal, a solid thriller centered around a college admissions racket, starring the always excellent Sachin Khedekar and the underrated, rarely off-note Barun Sobti. Randeep's short film, titled Kartaa, is also a must-watch, and I would highly recommend it in case you haven't watched it. You can find it on YouTube. I was delighted to have Randeep on the podcast to talk about all three, as well as Trial by Fire, which he co-directed. This is Himanshu, and you're listening to the Love of Cinema podcast. But before moving on, an important reminder. If you enjoy organic conversations centered on Indian cinema, Love of Cinema podcast was created for people just like you. So if you enjoy the podcast, please do consider supporting the show. Love of Cinema podcast is my passion project, and with every episode, I've attempted to create something that cinephiles will continue to find value, not just today, but over time as well. If you find value in the conversations on the pod, please do consider supporting the show. Your support will help me continue creating content with shelf life for fans of Indian cinema everywhere. You'll find the link to support the show in the show notes. You can also support the show directly from the podcast website. It's fast, it's easy, and your support is greatly appreciated. Also, if you liked the episode, please share the episode on social media, as that will help other people discover the podcast. Back to today's episode. Just a heads up, this episode is full of spoilers. So if you haven't watched Kohrra or Halahal, I would recommend coming back to this episode once you have watched them. And now, here's my chat with Randeep. Hey Randeep, how are you doing?
Hey, hi Himanshu, thank you so much for having me here.
Hey, thanks a lot, Randeep, for coming on the podcast. I watched pretty much everything that you have done, including your short, the lovely Halahal, and your two shows. And I cannot wait to talk to you about that. So I'm really glad that finally, we connected. And we're going to talk about all the shows and the movie, but I wanted to just start our conversation, with your journey in direction. Because
Yes.
as I understand you, I also found some of your acting auditions on
Yeah.
YouTube. So did
Yes.
you pursue acting before?
I started my journey from theater. When I was in Delhi, I was doing theater with Barry John I did for almost 4 years. I'm a trained actor. We did a couple of plays there, which Barry directed. So yeah, so when I came to Mumbai, whenever I got chance to to act, I tried, and that was a easy money also. It was good way of earning and surviving in city. So in initial days, yeah, I acted in couple of ads and I did couple of auditions, but finally I realized, okay, I mean, it's not the kind of work I want to do. I maybe I it's better if I should focus more on writing and direction part rather than just because I was not enjoying acting. I will be honest with you. So yes, at one point, then I quit, giving auditions.
And then how did you get associated with Kashyap? Because I know you assisted him on quite a few films.
Yeah. So when I came to Mumbai, so initially, Mumbai was never part of my plan. I was very happy in Delhi. We had our very close group of theatre friends. We used to rehearse in the evening, and we used to teach drama in schools. But when I came to Mumbai, because Barry shifted to Mumbai, and suddenly we thought, okay, now very gone to Mumbai. Let's go and do whatever we are doing here. Let's do in Mumbai. So when we came to Mumbai, we realized theatre is like in surviving through theatre is very difficult here, you know. And I always interested in direction. Even when I was in theatre, I used to direct children plays and all. There were few directors who were always in my list with whom I wanted to work with, like Anurag Kashyap, Divakar Banerjee, Anurag Basu, Vishal Bhardwaj, Shimit Amin, Sriram Raghavan. These were the names, in my diaries. Okay, I want to work with these directors. And I was lucky at first. Uh, I mean, like I got chance to work with Dibaka in my, first film. So Shanghai was my first film I assisted.
Right.
And yeah, right after Shanghai, I met Kashyap, and yeah, I told him, look, I work with Dibakar, and now I want to work with you. But before that, I chased Kashyap for 3 years. Yeah, when he was working for, I think, Devdi. So I used to go to his office, but every time, like how it happens, yeah, office boys, and they will like shoo you away. Okay, no, no, nothing is happening. Okay, director is not here. So I chased him almost for 3 years, and yeah, once I finished Shanghai, then I got chance to work with him.
And then finally on Mukkabaz, you were the chief AD, right?
Yeah, Mukkabaz. So before Mukkabaz, I finished my first short film, Karta, which
Oh, that was before
Anurag.
Mukkabaz.
Yeah, that was I shot that film before Mukkabaz, and it released after I worked in Mukkabaz. But after Karta, after directing my first shot, I didn't have anything to do. Like, yeah, I was looking for work, and same time I was writing my first feature. And yeah, and suddenly Kashyap called me once that okay, I'm planning this film, and uh, uh, we are looking for a chief AD, and why don't you join? So though at that time, I was not sure. Like, I thought, okay, it's done, yaar, ho gaya bahut. How long you will assist, just ek ke baad ek. Now, in the end, you have to, direct your own feature. But that time I needed money. So I said, acha, chief AD mein paisa acha hai. So I said, okay, I'll assist him. So yeah. And then it's good that I worked on Mukkabaz because that one film taught me a lot because I was chief AD, so I was directly involved with producers, EP. I was directly, in touch with DOP, art directors. So suddenly, because when you are AD, there the hierarchy of assistant directors. So when you are second AD or second AD, third AD, most of the time you don't know behind the like people management and film ka boardroom meetings and all, kya ho raha hai, what's happening between producer and directors and all the other HODs, because you are not HOD. But when you are chief AD, suddenly you are also an HOD, and then you know exactly what's happening, what kind of conversation are happening, before going on floor. So वो चीज ने काफी हेल्प किया मुझे, because when I was making my first feature Halahal, I mean, whole experience of Mukkabaz as a chief AD, it helped me a lot.
And Randeep, can you share like one example of what you learned, when you were assisting Kashyap or his style of direction or like what you were saying about right now? If you could give a particular example from maybe Mukkabaz.
When we were working on Mukkabaz, I mean, we had very limited budget. We hardly had, the kind of film we were trying to pull off, but we didn't have that kind of money. uh, You know, we didn't have a big star, but still we managed to do that. and trying to figure out the solution of it without having the money. That was the biggest learning part for me. uh, and how to tell your story in limited budget, in limited resources. That was the greatest learning experience. Though, now, whatever projects I am doing, I fight for budget, I fight for certain things. But in film shooting, you never know when you will be in a crisis. You know, anything could happen. Like doing Mukkavas, lot of things happen. Like our main lead actor Vinny, he got injured multiple times. Multiple times our shoot got cancelled, our location got cancelled at last moment. So these things were happening every day. We were facing some or the other problem. And that Mukkavas taught me that, okay, you have to find the solution. You can't crib, you can't complain, because you can't complain to anyone, because everybody said in the first, on the day of, like on the first day of the shoot, everybody was saying like, okay, it's an impossible task. Even our EP and producers, they were also like, yeah, okay, we don't have that kind of budget. The way Kashyap wants to, what kind of like vision Kashyap has, we don't have that kind of budget for to achieve that. So, so in that situation, you can't complain also, because the moment you will complain, they'll say, "We told you, okay, we can't do this. We told you." So every day we were trying to find the solution, and that was the biggest learning, because I remember when I was going to shoot Halahal, and I called Kashyap. So he was shooting for Sacred Game. He called me, okay, come here. I'm shooting here. So I went there, and we were sitting in vanity room, and he just gave me pep talk. Okay, this is your first film. I'm super happy and everything. And it's the only thing he said, that every day you will face problem. Every day, okay? Only look for solution, and that's it. Because even if you try to understand, even if you try to engage yourself in that problem or anything, okay, call this guy and what's happening, why it's not happening, something, you will waste your time, whatever time you have, because again, in limited resources, again, you have very limited time. So he said, the moment you get to know about the problem, start thinking about the solution and move on. And same thing I applied while we were shooting in Kohrra. Now I firmly believe that's the only way, in a film shoot. Doesn't matter what kind of budget you have, whether it's a small budget or big budget, you will face the problem, and you can't crib, just find out the solution and move on.
Yeah, directing is essentially a big hustle, right? I mean, you're
Yeah,
trying to do
yeah.
jugaad like every day. So,
Yeah, but especially in India, because doesn't matter, even a biggest budget of like, even if you say any film which has a like biggest budget, even they have lot of issues, because our budget is, we don't shoot like how Hollywood people shoot. Their budget is like 100 times than ours. So
Randeep, let's talk about the short first, Karta.
yes,
It's a
yeah.
lovely story. And, what I like about Karta is how it unfolds, provides very little context at first. And by the time you have all the context, comes the gut punch. Can you tell me what was the idea behind this story? Why did you want to tell this particular story for your short film?
First of all, thank you so much, Himanshu. Like, you watched Karta. I mean, if whenever somebody tells me that they watched my this first short, like it gives me immense pleasure, because it's my first shot. I mean, that shot gave me confidence. Okay, I can direct. I have that directorial temperament in terms of storytelling. So thank you so much that you watched my short film. Yeah, so again, I told you, I was very confused. What should I do? What kind of story I should choose to direct? And that time I was writing a feature film. It was a courtroom drama based on real story. And while I was writing, I was in Delhi for 2 months. I Every day I was visiting this Tihad, this Tis Hazari court. And so while writing this, I met one broker. Okay, so then me and my writer, we thought, okay, we can, you know, make a character of this kind of broker who's doing this, this journey. So we wrote a this broker's character, and when we finally wrote this screenplay of that feature film, we had to remove that broker's part from the screenplay. Okay, and but I thought it's very interesting, the journey of that broker. So actually, this film was about the guy who is in the jail, and broker comes to meet him. So that the film was about that guy. But this broker is a small part. But so when we removed that part from the screenplay, final screenplay, I thought it's a nice short story. I can make it. Then I rewrote that short part of that broker, and I gave it to few of my friends to read, and some of them said, "Oh, it's very flat. It's a very there's no drama, there's no graph, nothing." But somehow I was very convinced. I was very convinced about. Then I gave it to Kashyap to read it, and Kashyap read it. Kashyap only gave me one feedback that try to change the climax. Earlier climax was something else. So he said, just work on climax, otherwise rest is fine.
Can you share
So,
what the climax was before?
so earlier climax was that when he tried last time, when he tried to convince that guy Sanjay, who is in the jail, and he slaps him. He feels defeated, and he calls this Gupta guy, this like who is after him, to pay back. He calls him, and his son picks up, and he says he just got heart attack, and and he's no more. And suddenly he feels relieved the moment he got to know, okay, somebody who's after him, who's no more. And he feels relieved. He comes back, and his mother tells him that your wife is since morning she's away, and nobody knows where is she, and this and that. He doesn't pay any attention. He goes in his bedroom and sleep. So it's like incompetent. He just relieved for that moment. He and his wife, actually technically his wife left him in the end. But at that moment he just wanted to enjoy, okay, I'm relieved now. I don't need to worry about that money. So he goes and sleeps. So that was the part. I wanted to explore the aspect of that incompetency of a human being. You know. Then second climax was that he tries to kill entire family, and suddenly the moment his wife smells the gas leak, she wakes up, and suddenly she sees his husband is standing with this gas pipe, and she slaps him, and he starts crying, and then his wife also sits with. So that was the few climax. But then Kashyap said, it should be like boom, your end should be. So then I reworked, and yeah.
Yes, yes, it's a terrific climax. I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's
but
a gut punch.
that short film, yeah, that short film was completely for me. It was a mood practice, more than a story, more than a narrative. For me, it was like to handle the actors, handle the situation, and create the mood. If there's a scene between husband and wife, and there's a requirement of that tension between husband and wife, and so how will I build it through visual language? So, and minimalism. One other part, I was trying to practice that minimalism in direction. So Karta was complete practice for me, more than storytelling and like narrative and plot or anything. It was very dark and very gloomy, but yeah.
And after Randeep, you had directed this first short, your first
Yeah.
project, so to speak. What were some of your takeaways from that first project? Like, because you had assisted first, but this was the first project that you were essentially, in charge of everything. So, were there any creative takeaways that you carried over into Halahal when you started making that film?
I think during Halal was completely different film, and uh, one thing was like sure when I was directing Halal that okay because Karta whenever even now when I see uh, it's very sad story, even I feel sadness uh, uh, about that character and everything. So while I was making Halal, I thought okay it should be a little fun, there has to be some quirk in your storytelling. There has to be some different rhythm rather than this sadness. So I tried to even now I try to avoid, sadness. And if there's a sadness in the film, I try to bring some different rhythm so that even if sadness is there, it's like a
You want to offset that
uh,
a little bit.
yeah, even like you could watch it again and again, you rather than it's so sad that you don't want to watch it. It's so gloomy. So yeah, so Halal and second Halal was first long format for me because Karta was only 20 minutes short. So on in Halal, I tried to with pork, because it was again dark story. So I was trying to play with rhythm, different kind of humor.
What I loved about Halahal is the character arc of Yusuf and the character arc of Dr. Shiv,
Yeah,
right? They go in like almost opposite directions.
opposite direction. Yeah,
Yusuf goes from being a corrupt cop to someone, whose conscience finally wakes up and forces
yeah,
him to do the right thing. Meanwhile, Dr. Shiv, he goes from being like an honest, common individual who decides to compromise with the very people responsible for his daughter's death and its cover up. So that arc was also interesting for me. And of course, he does that in the larger interest of protecting his daughter's name.
mm.
But did you try like anything to show those two arcs going in opposite directions? I mean, I understand this is probably baked into the writing, but from the director's point of view, how did you go about showing those two different arcs?
No, I mean obviously it was there in the writing. Uh, I only tried to bring a visual language into it. Uh, like first scene was different, but it was this only, like this girl is running with this boy, and few people are chasing them, and then suddenly we hear a gunshot, and then we don't see what happened with these people. Okay, and then we after like title we hear that like his father uh, her father uh, gets to know that his daughter is no more. I only I thought okay, let's see what happened actually. Okay, I'm very big fan of a few of Hitchcock's film where he shows everything. Audience knows everything, and even then they are intrigued. Because character doesn't know, and they are looking for the answer, and audience are with the character. So I thought, let's see everything in first. What exactly happened with this girl? You know, how she got killed, but her father doesn't know. And then you are with her father's journey. So few things like I just said, okay, let's do this. Apart from that, climax obviously, I tried to change the only climax that it was not in the script that when that Yusuf is getting killed, but like Sachin Khedikar's character, like he doesn't know whether he got killed or not. He was not even aware of. I just tried to bring that maybe what if he knows? What if he's also part of? What if he knew that? Okay, now he will get killed. Even knowing then he detached himself from that that thought and that emotion is with I mean, Halal ends at that emotion and that feel. And I think that emotion makes that character, oh, now he became, actually, if you see, he didn't become Yusuf. Okay, he was just trying to look for answer. Okay, he was trying to fight a battle uh, for his daughter, and the moment he realized, okay, this was the truth, and beyond this I can't fight, because now I have to fight with the authority, I have to fight with the bigger powerful people, and they can harm me, much more than my imagination. So he stops there because he has his limitation. He's Aam Aadmi. He has his limitation. So he stopped there. He stops there. Okay. He doesn't go. He doesn't pursue his battle beyond this. That's it. That's his journey. But that end moment where we got to know, oh, he knew about Yusuf's killing, it makes him that arc. So, but yeah, that was not deliberate. I just thought, okay, he should know what happened with, and that's why there's a shot of a newspaper where uh, there's a news about
Yeah.
cops killing, but that cop is somebody else. It's not Yusuf. It's some other cop, and some other sand mafia killed a cop. So I was just trying to evoke the emotion. That's it. Not no fact.
Yeah, the climax is great. I mean, the entire movie is good, but I really love the last, 20 minutes or so. And especially there's one scene that I wanted to discuss with you, Randeep. During the deal-making sequence,
Yeah.
between Bhai Saab, Acharya, and Dr. Shiv, there is a lovely fade-in cut to a scene where we see a very innocent-looking Archana, sitting by the dining table studying,
Yeah.
and then it quickly fades out. And, I interpreted that in two different ways because I saw it as, maybe Dr. Shiv is thinking that, he needs to protect his daughter's name. But at the same time, we are also getting this hint that this innocent looking, very normal girl otherwise was a big part of this huge scam, that was going on. And like, I think it's either Acharya or Bhai Saab who mentions that she was a pretty integral part of that scam, right?
Yes.
He says that. So, I thought that it works both ways. What was the thinking behind putting in that fade in?
So you're right. I mean, main uh, main point of the film is why suddenly Shiv, वो एकदम से change क्यों हो जाता है? Reason behind was this only, that he doesn't want his daughter's name to come out, because you know and he's the only person who knows in this family, and that's why there's a shot of, in the end he's sitting in the car and he gulps it down, and now, and that's why when he, in the end, when he's in the hospital, his new hospital, he's very happy, very chatty, so that's his social life, social face. He has to keep this facade, rest of his life. But the moment he comes and sits in the car, that's his reality, suddenly he becomes very calm, very sad. And that's the two life he has to balance and live, because truth, he's the only one who knows the truth, and he has to live with that truth. About that shot, yeah. Uh, but my reason to bring that shot was, first, a father who is, in his memory, his daughter is still innocent face of his daughter. I mean, he will never believe, even somebody will come uh, and gives him some evidence or something. Even then, he won't believe, because he always saw his daughter as an innocent kid, innocent bright child. So that was the reason from his perspective. And second, from narrative part, technical, other reason was a technical reason, because we see Archana, the girl, in the beginning. After that, at some point, we see her photos. So I wanted to bring that memory of her face, so that you connect to that girl again. So otherwise, what happens? Okay, if you are, because she only comes in the beginning, and I think uh, in the In the college also, we see her enlarged photograph in the backdrop. So reason was only to build some visual memory of that character, so that whenever we are talking about that, you know her face. Otherwise, it won't affect you that much. Uh, and in the end, the moment you show that small bit, suddenly again you connect with that girl. So it's like little technical manipulation also, but it was the requirement of the scene, and it was like going well with all these things. So yeah.
And I think you already mentioned that you wanted to put some quirk into it, and I think that's done through Barun Sobti's character. Where he's showing up at all these places. Especially that one guy that he seems to have his number. And there's that he's in a hotel room and he's doing some Spider-Man role play or something, and he shows up, and then he also kind of sneaks up on him when he's in a car. Was that part of the quirk that you were talking
No, it,
about?
it was always there. Yeah, it was always there in the script, because the script was written by Gibran Noorani and Zishan Kadri, who wrote Gangs of Wasipur. And there were a lot of few elements were there in this script, like this. Though I was very nervous while shooting this Spider-Man part, because it was too. I thought it's too spoofy, too gimmicky. So I was little worried to while I was shooting that part, but it came out well. Then rest of like this work was there while we were even discussing, and whenever some new ideas came, I used to discuss with Gibran. Okay, can we bring this kind of thing? Then he used to rewrite those part, and he brought a lot of stuff. In fact, in second half there were a lot of jokes and co- uh, in second half, but we removed in the edit room, because by the time we get into the film becomes very serious.
Mm.
Characters are very serious, and then suddenly those jokes were
They take
we
away from the mood, right?
they were taking away from the movie, so we had to remove. In fact, in edit room once Zishan told me, okay, don't remove this joke, it was very funny joke, and every time whenever that scene comes, we used to laugh. But then he said, no, 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 no. And I mean, I said, no, we have to remove, otherwise, because now we got in, right now we are with father's emotion. We are very serious, and suddenly this joke is making everything, it's watering it down. So,
Randeep, have you watched Once Upon a Time in America?
yeah. I watched it. It's
The
my favorite
last,
film.
yes, yes, yes. I love that
Yeah,
film
yeah.
too. The last scene from, Halahal reminded me of that scene, where Robert De
Mhm.
Niro is walking and that garbage truck kind of pulls
Yeah,
behind him. And I didn't know if this was a nod to that or this was, just a coincidence that, this is how you wanted to show that, okay, so, they got their eyes on Barun's character now.
yeah. So, no, you're right. I mean, I this idea was always there. That truck is coming from behind and he's driving. One thing which again, like Once Upon a Time in America, or this Ghost Story also. In Ghost Story, there's a scene when this main protagonist cross the road, okay, with all the papers and everything. Suddenly, we off camera we hear the sound of big bang, and suddenly we see papers are flying. We don't see the impact, but we know what happened. We know what happened. So this thought of this, oh shit, this will happen. 100% sure, like there's no open ending, nothing. We 100% sure now this will happen. This makes you more anxious than if you see. So when you see again Once Upon a Time America, or in Ghost Story, and many films I've seen these kind of. So this emotion, this notion is, I think, oh, it's very impactful. It's very cinematic. It plays with your your memory, your unwanted fear, your so yeah. So that was that's just a directorial
Yeah,
practice.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And
let's
that
do
scene
this.
works really well because, I think after that, it pretty much the end credits. So the
Yeah.
credits start to roll. So, we don't know exactly what is
So
he
in fact,
going.
I tell you an interesting story. So when we were shooting this scene, that was our last day of shoot, and we had to shoot 5 scenes in that day. So we were shooting on same road. We shot 5 scenes in different angles. Okay, and this was the last scene. We did 3 takes. So first take, I, like it. We felt like, oh, it's not. Sorry, uh, it's not landing perfect. It's very raw. Then we did the second take, and then we did third take. And third take, we thought, oh, it's perfect. Like everything is perfect. His bike is in the center of these two lights and everything. Composition wise. But in the edit, somehow I keep I kept going to that first take, which was raw, which was very rusty, because it just happened. So I put that first shot. Though those two shots were very beautiful, but this first shot was very raw, suddenly. So I put that shot. So yeah. So even while in editing, I realized, oh, this rawness sometimes, it looks much better on screen than this perfect shot. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love that the shot like cuts pretty much, right after we see the truck that aligns behind it. It's,
Yeah.
you don't hold on it for a long time. So that's one of my favorite scenes from the movie. Randeep, let's talk about Kohrra now. Kohrra,
Yes.
was your big project. And, lovely show again, just a great show. And I think it does so many things well. And the first thing that I thought about when I watched Kohrra for the first time, was something that I had read from Vijay Tendulkar in Marathi many, many years ago. That he had written, that violence manifests in very different ways. Usually, when we talk about violence, we talk about physical violence, right? A person hitting somebody. But there is also emotional violence. There is also verbal violence. You can swear at a person. There is mental, violence. And this particular manifestation of violence can take, different shapes. And, I thought, hey, here is a show that's, kind of, addressing that same thing because there is manifestation of violence in so many different ways. And in fact, where I had shot a small email to Sudeep Sharma because he was on the podcast, some time back. So I know him. So I had wrote an email and he said, "Oh, I'm really glad you thought about Vijay Tendulkar. It means a lot." And so, but I thought that's one thing that Kohrra did so well. And again, and I'm sure that this is all in the writing, but again, your visual style of storytelling, the mood creation, the way that you're portraying the characters, because at the end of the day, even if it's on paper, the way that you're handling the characters, the actors plays a big part into this. Was this something that, that you guys were trying to do with the show?
When we were making, we were just making. We were just trying to be honest with the writing, with the material. Uh, Normally, I've been practicing this for last, whatever projects I've done. I always first, obviously, you have to like the writing. Once you like the writing, I try to believe in that whatever that characters are doing. I try to believe in that. I try, and it's my like मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि you know it take almost 2 to 3 years to write a particular series. So writers have been prac- writing this script for last 2 years, 3 years, and so there are a lot of layers and a lot of stories behind even in one small scene. They can't write everything in that one scene, but there are lot of layering. So when you read, when you try to understand writing, you keep scratching the surface and trying to get into rather than written what is written. Screenplay's technical draft, it's written, you have to go and shoot, but then there are a lot of thoughts and emotions beyond these. So I normally just try to understand those thoughts and those emotions. And normally I never did. Even with Halahal, even with Trial by Fire or in Kohrra, I never uh, try to change anything which is not written there. Uh, Dialogue, I never change, never. Because until unless if you are like in pre-production, if there's some, whatever you want to discuss and you can, okay, that's my thought. But once it's locked, okay, you're convinced,
Before you go on the
then
floors, right?
before you go on the floor. But what I do, I try to change the entry and exit of the scene. I just try to understand, okay, whose perspective this, because sometimes what happens that in writing, when you read, you see, okay, this writing is written from somebody else's perspective, okay, but when you start processing the script, suddenly you realize, okay, no, this could be his perspective also, because now you're trying to visualize the characters and everything. So that's that one thing I do, and which I told Sudeep also when we met first time. I said, okay, I normally I try, if you write that, my if you are convinced and believed, and you're writing that this character jumps from 20th floor, you know, and he lands and he start walking, I will believe it. In fact, there was one scene which was written earlier, and I was completely convinced about that scene, but they were not they were not convinced. Okay, no, 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 we have to write. It's too filmy. I said, no, no, I can see that scene, but they changed it when Garundi goes to save Balbir when he is kidnapped and all. So earlier it was very different. For me, it was working, but for them, they thought, oh, it's too filmy, so they changed it. So, but yeah, but I try to bring uh, uh, like yeah, like uh, from whose point of view I should enter in the scene, and from what should be the last image, what should be the first image uh, of the scene. That's a very important part which I do when I I do my prep, uh, and visual language and all. So so yeah, uh, like when Garundi and Balbir they go to Dhillon house. So it was pretty much from uh, Dhillon. Normally, obviously, because you are in a house, the main where I mean, you are in the house of the the father whose son got killed in the morning. So definitely they are the victim. You will see that scene from their point of view. They are the main character. Okay. But I felt, okay, no, I don't know these people because their pain is much, much higher and bigger than. So I need to know these people before getting into their personal life, So that's why I shot them from far, And that's why camera always closer to the Balbir and Garundi, because Balbir and Garundi are the only character whom we see from the closer lens, in the beginning, even in the other scene. And that's why when they are in Steve's house, camera was always closer to the Balbir and Garundi, and they were always far from the camera. Camera never goes to them. They come to the camera. So those things, you have to, and it makes a lot of difference when you start, joining scene after scene, then you see that rhythm that even in crimes location and opening scene, I didn't go close to the father. When father comes suddenly and he starts shouting, Paul, Paul, Kyoya. Camera was closer to the Balbir only. And the same problem I faced, when I was shooting Halal. And suddenly when somebody start howling and crying, I feel like, okay, I should not go closer to them. It's very so I like to see them from far, you know. So those things, the pain and everything, I just try to. Otherwise, it was very tight script. With these kind of script, what happens if you start trying to do a lot of improvise or changing, then you will mess up because everything is grammatically, it's been set. My job was to believe in those moments and make sure that visually it is conveyed.
And going back to what you said earlier, Randeep, that when you approach a piece of writing, you want to, first see if you like it. Can I ask you what you were attracted to in the writing of Kohrra to start with, like when you read it the first time?
First thing I noticed that okay, it's a crime investigative drama, but focus is more on personal relationship. You know, through crime, they are trying to explore the personal equations, personal aspect of human being. That intrigued me. When I read, rather than it's typical investigative, and that's why even investigative part also was never shot. In typical way, because investigation was a secondary, even for me, even for writers. So it was always a personal drama, you know. So we never tried to explore that typical procedural drama where cops are going and searching, and you see clue, and you see some evidence, and camera goes closer to the evidence. Never. Even if you see opening sequence when Garundi comes with this syringe and bag, camera never goes to that evidence, because it's a very important piece of evidence, because that was the only thing they found in the crime scene. But camera never goes. Camera always stay on the characters. I thought it's interesting. It would be interesting to explore this kind of drama, and I liked the rhythm, pacing of it. Uh, uh, it was not like जल्दबाजी में नहीं थे. They were taking their time uh, to go from one scene to another scene, from one emotion to another emotion.
And like you said, I mean, this is, it's actually not right to call it a police procedural because it's this show is really about, so many different themes like, toxic masculinity, or, it's about the theme of not being able to truly understand the people that are closest to you. And, there is, I think, even a dialogue, that Grundy says that, कई बार पूरी जिंदगी अपने परिवार के लोगों को समझने में
नहीं समझ पाते.
नहीं समझ पाते, something like that. So it's not really a police procedural, and that's what's so lovely about this show. Randeep, I remember when we were talking about doing this, and we were chatting on the phone before. I asked you, what was something that was particularly challenging to shoot about this show. And you mentioned that the police torture scenes, gaze-wise,
Yeah.
that was something that was difficult. I wanted to ask you a question that touches on that because there are so many things in this show. Like there are shades of anger issues, propensity for violence, police torture. As a director, do you need to be extra careful and thoughtful in your depiction of those shades? Like, do you feel the director has a certain responsibility towards the way that those shades of the characters are portrayed on screen?
So I think more than anything, director, I mean any filmmaker, they have responsibility towards themselves. If like I'll tell you, if I'll shoot even in future whatever I shot, if something because it exposes you also as a person, your politics, your uh, background, or what you're thinking. So it's scary for you also. Like if someday you suddenly see some scene which was violent, and that moment you didn't realize, and you shot it, and now it is coming across as if you're glorifying the violence. It is scary for me. Okay, okay, oh, I didn't know. Because a lot of time you are not aware about yourself more than anything. Uh, you can't fake it. You can't pretend. Okay, no, no, I have to like in your head, in your being, in your psyche, you like the violence and you like the glorification of violence. But while shooting, you think, no, no, but people like, so I would not. It won't happen. In the end, you will uh, portray and explore what you know best, and that's why I think whoever is doing, they're doing their best. So it's scary for yourself. So your responsibility comes for yourself. Uh, So yeah, I mean, so like whatever you are practicing in front of camera, or you are, uh, uh, yeah, you are practicing in front of camera, exactly what you have been practicing in your life, you have been practicing in your conversation, uh, and it was not always like this. And there were time, uh, you were not aware about these things, because we all uh, grow. So there are a lot of things which I was not aware about earlier, but the moment awareness came, and suddenly you realized, oh yeah, you know, when you show violence, how it should be depicted, how it should be, because uh, and then you practice those things, then you are, when you are even reading the script, even like in Kohrra, main toughest part, if you'll ask me, while shooting, was that these two cops, they are your main lead, and they're toxic, you know. Like Barandi and Gurdi, why I'm emphasizing on the main lead, because when you're central character, you most of the time you go closer to them, lensing wise. When you're shooting, you try to capture their each and every beat, what they're, because they're the main character. It's written the way, it's the way said that when you try to understand their emotions, you will understand the story. So now, if you go closer to the characters, so close, so deep, you go in their personal life, you started you create empathy for these characters, okay? But these characters are toxic, they're violent, you know then what happens, whatever they will do, now you are creating empathy for these characters, and now then you will start justifying those characters, because you are you try to connect those characters more than others. So that's why it was very, very tricky, when they were violent. I always tried to figure out how to. Then that's why, if you see, when they're torturing Veera, uh, Balbir comes late, so Balbir is not there when Veera is getting tortured, and some of the part, uh, physically it was so violent, so that physical impact of that violence gives you more visual impact than their emotions and other part. But yeah, that was the difficult part, to justify in the show.
Yes, and there is a great scene. I thought that I believe it's in the last episode. When Garundi goes to release the rapper guy from the lockup,
Yeah,
and he says that your papers are in and now you can go. And at that time, that guy's so shook up, and he's in denial that he's pretty much about to be released. And I think that scene also works well, because that's the kind of damage that even a few days or a few hours in a lockup or torture can do to you. And I thought that was a good scene, that kind of sums it up, that, there is some responsibility that comes with all this, because cops have to solve crimes by hook or crook. But, whatever they're doing, it has some kind of ramifications for them
yeah,
personally, not in the system or anything, but for
yeah, yes.
themselves. Randeep, another thing I loved about the show was the world creation. I mean, the way that the Punjabi milieu has been created. The Amrika Return Cafe, and I don't know, are there cafes like that, like look like American diners?
Yeah, so that was the first idea when we were on Recce, uh, and suddenly I saw one cafe. So it's a very glass cafe. It's outside. Uh, that it was not cafe actually. It was some property or building, and the one part of the wall was glass wall. Okay, and outside that glass wall, there's a petrol pump. Very dingy, and so I said it would be nice, if we make this as a cafe, beautiful cafe. And the moment you see outside, it's you know that petrol pump and truck and tractor is coming. Then uh, I told my production designer, is it possible to make, because if you see this all this American film, typical cliche American diner, whether it is Pulp Fiction or any movie. So yeah, that idea came from, like, literally lifted from, okay, let's bring that, because it will be nice, because we were shooting 3 or 4 scenes in that cafe. So I said, let's bring that kind of aesthetic here. And again, it's a Punjab. Uh, you'll, I mean, you will believe if you'll bring that aesthetic suddenly, even in Punjab's village, you will buy it. So actually, I wanted that cafe in the center of some farm. So outside, I could see farm and road and that also, but that we couldn't achieve. In fact, where we shot this American cafe, outside that cafe there was a canal, you know, but because of lighting, because outside sunlight was too harsh, you know, and so we had to close the glass and everything, so we couldn't see. But it was also very nice and very contrast to the it's American cafe, and outside you see canal and that's road and truck and everything is going. So yeah, but it lifted directly from the American films.
Yes. And then couple of scenes, Randeep, if you could, talk about these scenes, whatever light that you could shed on, that would be nice. The first one was where, Balbir kind of breaks down while drinking with Gurundi. He mentions to Gurundi that he has never got anything right, both in his personal and professional life. But his tragedy isn't that, he was a bad parent or not so good husband or an underachiever professionally at work. His tragedy lies in forgetting his grandkid's birthday, because he's trying to hold on to something, and even that's like slipping out of his hands. And it's a scene that says a lot, but the dialogues are very, minimal. And I know you mentioned that that's your style. You like to keep it minimalist because, I think it gets the job done. What can you tell us about that scene?
Yeah, so I tell you, like, one another thing which I liked about the script, that very minimalistic it was writing. Because what happens as a director, I tell you, I'm uh, uh, little selfish. So when I see minimalistic scene written, then it gives you a lot of scope as a director to explore scene, scene within scene, subtext, because there are few lines are written and very impactfully. So it was there, which I really liked about, like, if you see, I'm just like going out of your, like, just telling you something else. Like, you see this truck driver's track, okay, Shinda's track. So Shinda loves Roop, and if you see, there's only three scenes of Roop. Even in that three scene, you will see complete arc of that character. Even in only this three scene, one scene that police comes and tortures her, then another scene she's getting ready, she walks and meets this Shinda, and there she realizes, I mean, she couldn't get her love. Okay, so that was the beauty. Even if you see Raji has only 4 or 5 scenes. In that 4 or 5 scene, you see complete arc. That was the beauty. You know, and is it talking about dialogue? Dialogues were written exactly like this, very minimalistic. So it helps you to explore scene within scene, then emotions. Because these are not verbose. It helps you to go a little deeper, you know, and observe them, these characters. So yeah,
So are you saying that it gives you a bigger free hand when
yes, yes,
with
yes,
this, as opposed to when scenes are really, written out, like huge dialogue baji and all that.
yeah. Then problem is because you're covering a lot of information. There are a lot of talky. Then it doesn't give you space, where you can just uh, take some moment and
Makes
explore
sense.
something else. Yeah, uh, you go beyond the, like, it's my belief that uh, writing material is, is technical material, and your job is to translate this into a novel, a visual novel. You know, like how when you read novel, you go on some another trip. You know, so that's the thing, and there are a lot of thoughts in each and every scene. You try to explore, scene within scene, line within line. You try to create some different pauses in between the line, and you try to explore lot of thoughts and ideas.
Another thing I forgot to ask you was, your two main leads. I mean, they're both great actors. What was it like working with them in the sense that what I want to ask is that, when you have really good actors, it's good because, half of the job is done, but it's also that, they have a certain idea of the way that they're looking at the material and you have a certain director's vision. So in your case, how was it, kind of handling these two, especially with the kind of togetherness that there is between these two characters, because they're pretty much all the time together.
It is a little tricky, like working with actors. Again, it's a technique. I mean, you develop over the period of time. I mean, whether it's good or bad, you get to know when when you're shooting with them. And it's a different process. You learn, through your journey how to work, because eventually, in the end, uh, getting performance out of the actors is most important part of the making. Sometimes even if your camera movement, or your production design, or your everything is not up to the mark, but performance is good, everything is bang on, nobody will notice other fuck ups. They will, like, if you see a lot of old shows, like I always keep giving example of Byomkesh Bakshi, that show which used to come in Doordarshan. Lot of scene, it's it had been shot against the wall, against this white wall. These
Right.
only two characters are standing and they're just talking, or sometimes there's only one chair, camera is not moving, nothing. So impactful, because your writing is good, your performance is good. So this is a very important part. You can manipulate the audience with the good performances. So that's a very important part, and you learn. Sometimes even in Kohrra, there were I think more than 100 actors, uh, and with each and every actor, you try to develop different, you know, method to, like, the way I was talking to Balbir, I can't talk to Garundi, because again, Barun, because I knew Barun from Halahal, so I had a different rapport. I knew him inside out. Okay, as an actor, okay, but uh, Surinder Vicky, I was working with him first time, so you try to figure out the person, you know, and it's just technique. Sometimes you lie to actor. You lie. Okay, you so that some some of the actors, they like to get a lot of detail. And then only they perform good. Sometimes what happens that some particular actor, they tell you, okay, give me all the detail, and you give them all the detail, you know and suddenly you see, oh shit, I shouldn't have, because so it's a learning process. So next time you start lying to them. So it's all process you and method you develop, how to work. And same it happens with actors also. They also, with different directors, they try to develop different process, different method. It's pure technique. I think it's very difficult to, because when I was shooting Halahal, it was completely different process. When I was shooting Kohrra, working with actors was completely different. And again, because I worked in theater for almost 4 years with Barry, and I used to teach drama to kids in school in Delhi. Yeah, in Delhi schools. So I worked with children. Then I worked in television for some time, and then I assisted so long. Even in my assisting days, I used to handle floor. I used to give cue and all. Then uh, I've been an actor for. So somehow I can feel the rhythm. of the actors. So, I mean, maybe I'm talking too much, but
No, no, no.
uh,
This is all interesting stuff. It all ties in.
yeah. So somehow I I'm very much comfortable with actors. In fact, this was the first thing which attracted towards filmmaking for me, apart from storytelling and everything. Getting working with actors and giving your ideas of that this scene should can be happen like this. You should do something like this, and seeing those things happening in front of you. Those idea. You know those like execution of those ideas, it's something different, and that's why when I shoot, I immensely love actors, like blindly. I try to avoid all those gossips and news and any bad thing about actors, because I just literally try to blindly I try to love them blindly. But the moment project finished, uh, they're the first people I just disconnect with. It's very weird thing, but yeah, because sometimes it's good not to know them too much, because you might need to work with them again. So they should they should have some mystery. For me, it's always nice if, like, my friends whom I know inside out. Sometimes for me it's very difficult to even to visualize them, in some characters, until unless some characters are exactly like them, then only, otherwise. So sometimes that mystery of a person intrigues you. Let's explore this. Yeah.
And since you come from a trained actor's background, is that a plus or a minus when you're trying to deal with actors? Because you need to turn off that part of your brain because you need to let them do their own thing, or you want to add inputs, that are coming from your acting brain, so to speak.
Yeah, so I always let them do what they want to do. I never ever uh, force them anything, but eventually I try to get what I wanted, you know. So that's a game, uh, to make them believe that they are doing what they wanted to do. But same time, you are like, it's like playing with the kids, Okay, they think, oh, so. And one thing which helped me with the theater and my acting training helped me that I have uh, sensitivity towards actors. They are very sensitive, very vulnerable, and in front that I know that I like, if one particular actor is doing some very difficult and even in small scene, I know how he must be feeling at that moment, how difficult or easy, or vulnerable he is or she is at that moment. I know. So I will. So I'm always try to be more and more sensitive towards an actor, more. So, and that because I know, it's very very tough job to be in front of camera and act, even say a single line, and and somebody is trying to be, emotionally trying to be naked in front of you. And they're very vulnerable. So how to handle that? So that sense, I mean, some of it, I think, I don't know how much I have in me, but I think, yeah. So,
And the closing shot, Randeep, where in the middle of the night, Indira turns on the light, steps out, and opens the front gate because she realizes that outside Balbir is sitting in his car, in two minds. So she's trying to give him a signal. The show ends on a hopeful note, because there is so much misery and there is so much suffering throughout the show. Was that something that you guys discussed a lot, like how to end the show, or was that pretty much locked in from the beginning?
that we discovered in the edit. Actually, it was there in the writing, but then placement of that chunk, and the beat of edit of that chunk, like exactly at this moment it should end. That was discovered in the edit, because there was other few parts also involved in that scene, which we shot, and but while edit at that particular moment, at that particular beat, suddenly we felt, oh, this is the end. We should not go beyond this, and we edited out other part. So that was the only that was the call we took in the edit. But whatever you see, it was there in the writing. Yeah,
What was
just
there that was cut out?
like it was it was not so was it like he sees that house and then he drives away, so yeah, but we shot it, and but in the edit we realized, okay,
I see. Okay, so that was way different than if it is driving away.
yeah, yeah.
That
So suddenly you feel, because what happened uh, when you when you're show in front of you visually, now you know the truth, what what is the exact beat should be. So that's why editing is so tricky. You can misplace one or two beats here and there, and you can mess up the entire flow. So yeah,
but it works really well again. I think that's a
yeah,
great closing shot because you're looking for some kind of hopeful
yes,
note and you get it at the end.
yeah,
And finally, in Trial by Fire, Randeep, what are I don't want to call it challenges, but when you're bringing to life something like Trial by Fire, which is based on a real life tragedy and is sensitive to sentiments and opinions, and because it's not that old either. Were you really, aware of all this when you guys were making this show, or you guys thought, we are not going to worry about all that? We are just trying to tell the story as it happened, and that's that.
yeah. So well, having conversation with Prashant, one thing I immediately figured out that because Prashant has written this material, and Prashant was handling Neelam Krishnamurti and Shekhar Krishnamurti's track, and I was handling all the other tracks, Ashish Vidyarthi's track, and uh, that guy who lost eight person in the family, this track, and these 4 5 tracks I was handling. And while talking to him, I figured out he's more purist than, his approach is more purist. He tries not to, he wanted, not to manipulate the emotion, just be there, just observe that. Like in Kohrra, uh, we designed and stylized a lot of scene and sequences, but in Trial by Fire, it was approach was more purist, more simplest approach. So, I mean, what happens when you're working in any project? First thing you try to figure out what should be your approach to tell this particular story. So that was that, and yeah, again, it was very horrifying uh, incident. The Upahar burning and 70 people died in that incident. Uh, but we were trying to tell the story about this injustice, you know, that a lady who's fighting this battle for last 20 years. And it raises a question that does she get justice? You know, and even while working in Trial by Fire, even on personal ground, I also got to know a lot of my thought, evolved in about the justice system, about justice. I never thought, I never looked justice from that perspective. So yeah, even for me, even for Prashant, for every one of us, it was like we were trying to exploring ourselves, while shooting that film. Um I mean, I never thought that, I mean, a person, I mean, I always thought, okay, justice exists. But first time I realized that, oh, For a person, I mean, justice is meaningless. Because now, like, if you see from Neelam Krishnamurti and Shekhar Krishnamurti, they cannot get justice. Doesn't matter whatever verdict come. They lost their kid, you know. And in this battle, they lost their 20 years also, you know, in this. So they lost their life. So what is the meaning? What is the significance of justice for them? Meaningless. But for society, it's very important that somebody should fight because that sets a pattern that, okay, whatever happened with this one particular person, but hope in society, this thing won't repeat, it won't happen with anybody else. So it's very weird, that fight is very important, but while that person is fighting, he will never ever get justice. That's for sure. Maybe he'll get some satisfaction and condolences or whatever, but in pure form of justice, he will never get. Even he will lose whatever they have in their hand. So their time, their relationship, and everything. But society is I mean, they get benefited out of this. So the trial by fire was completely different. It was not you're telling some fictional story and you're trying to create drama and trying to create some no. I mean, while shooting trial by fire, you have to be very very sensitive towards material, towards each and every character. Whether it is that security guard, who lost 8 person, including 6 months old baby of his family. Now he's 80 years old. And first thing it should appear in his head that what's the point of living now because he lost everyone in this family, and now he's fighting. Now his bigger problem is how to cremate, this body. He doesn't have money. He's so poor. So these are very, very sensitive, struggle of a person. I mean, so.
That Ashish Vidyarthi track that you mentioned you worked on, I saw a lot of Karta in that, because it's a similar kind of a character. Was that a real? Was that based on a real person?
I mean, incident was real. Obviously, we fictionalized and everything. I mean, we
And there are many
changed.
people like that. So I mean, I'm
Yeah, we
sure that.
changed. We fictionalized because what you do, you took the incident which we all, it is in public domain, and then that emotion is true, and then you create characters, and so yeah. I mean, Prashant would know better whether it was real or inspired, or though it shows inspired from the book. Yeah.
And how easy was it, like two directors working on like different tracks? Does that have its own challenges? Or, it's that much easier because it kind of speeds up. You can have two, parallel.
Yeah, so I had great fun while shooting Trial by Fire. It was, in fact, because of Trial by Fire, I could able to handle the Kohrra, because Trial by Fire suddenly gave me that exposure, gave me, confidence of handling, big show. Uh, and I also did first time I worked with two directors. After Halahal, I was doing Trial by Fire, and Prashant had watched Karta actually. So he had watched Karta, and he thought, it has same value, same that feel, that gloominess. So that's why he approached me, and then they watched Halahal, and they thought, okay, I would be good for the directorial part. Uh, but what we did, like we in pre only we decided, okay, this is the track we will, segregate. We segregated our tracks, and one track, what is the name? Rajesh Telang track. That was the only one which we co-directed. Like we both were on set, and I was handling acting, and I was handling actors, and the designing part, and Prashant was handling camera movement and all the other, you know, and it was very well coordinated. I enjoyed it. First time we were doing this. And like two directors are both are directing the scene, so it was fun. Uh, but yeah, it was fun. I mean, uh, he was never on set when I was directing it. I was never on set, though he was sure, and I used to call him that please come and see, but he said no, no, no. So when I was directing, he was never set on the monitor. So I mean, he gave me like full freedom. Okay, do whatever you want to do. You know? So only one thing I tried to change that because when he was shooting, so initial 5 days I was on set. I just tried to see his rhythm. So so only thing I tried that to break the rhythm so that you can break the monotony. Otherwise, it will feel same. So I just tried to explore different rhythm than what he had in his track, so that when track B starts, you will feel different world. And
And by the way, Randeep, what was that courtroom drama that you mentioned you were writing before Halahal? That's not
yeah,
trial by fire, right? Right.
no, 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 no. It's very different. It was again based on real story, but uh, basically it was uh, like there's a police like the characters who are involved in that story was police people. Then this guy who's inside the jail, who wants to meet his daughter, who's which court is not allowing him to meet because he's in jail and some other complication that what story talks about. And then this is judicial people. So this story, you know, deal with these three cops, then this judicial system, and then this guy who is inside the jail and who wants to meet. So I again like reopened that script and I sent it to some lab. Let's see, because it's very different. The pace is very different, and uh, I had written long back when before Court released. So after watching Court, I thought, oh, he had done so brilliantly. So because when I was visiting Tees Hazari, suddenly I thought, oh, Courtroom is very different than what we have seen so far. But then when I watched Court, I said, oh, aesthetically he achieved, you know. But then again, when I just few years back, I read that old script of mine. I thought, oh, it's now approach can be changed, and now it can be told again with fresh perspective and approach. So now again I'm reworking on that part. Yeah, it's a human drama, and it uh, uh, it it like कि आपको काफी सवाल खड़े करती है वो फिल्म in terms of human morality and about your system.
And finally, what are we going to get to see next from you?
So now next I'm working on my feature film. I mean, let's hope everything सब कुछ हो जाए, and we lock star and everything, and then we see. And I'm
Can you share
developing.
the genre?
It's a drama. Like, yeah, I mean this is a film which deals with a lot of different genre. So it was my dream kind of project, which I've been working for last 3-4 years, and finally, I mean, we signed a studio and we got a chance
Oh,
to.
that's nice. Okay.
Yeah, so it's very different, very different than compared to whatever we have been. So that's
Okay. And that's in pre right now?
we haven't started pre. We are
Okay.
still in the process of a little bit of writing, and yeah.
Great. Great. Well, thanks a lot, Randeep. This was great. I took a little bit longer than I told
Completely
you,
fine.
but this was fun. And thanks again for coming on the podcast and chatting with us.
Thank you so much, Himanshu. Thank you for tolerating me, and I hope I was able to answer you whatever
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
If you like the episode, do consider supporting the show. Your support will help me continue creating content like this. You can find the link for supporting the show in the show notes and on the pod website. Also, do share this episode on Twitter, Insta, or Facebook. And do subscribe, rate, and review the pod wherever you listen to your pods. You can follow me on Twitter and Insta at loveofcinemasf8. Feel free to reach out there or by email with your comments, feedback, and suggestions. You can find my email in the show notes. That's the episode. This is Himanshu signing off. And as always, thank you for listening to the Love of Cinema podcast.